Not a huge surprise at this point, but 3 of the top 5 highest scorers so far in Week 6 are Dolphins. And only 1 quarterback in the top 5, and that, of course, is Tua Tagovailoa. Can you guess the top 5 scorers right now? Superflex, full PPR, non-decimal scoring.
Oh, Superflex scoring? Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, he's
Raheem. I was making fun of you because the top 5 in Superflex are the same as the top 5 in 1 QB leagues. Raheem Mostert.
You're right. You're absolutely right, sir. Yeah, Mostert, Tua.
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
AJ Brown?
No. He's 20 points, that loser. He didn't score.
Okay. I don't know. It's hard to remember with all these great
St. Brown and Adam Thielen, of course.
Okay.
That's your top 5. Mostert, ARSB, Thielen, Tua, and Tyreek Hill with Cooper Kupp just missing the cut. Welcome to Fantasy Football Today. 2-man show tonight. Dave was so disgusted by Week 6 that he just needed the night off. No, that's not true, but Dave is taking the night off. So it's me and Heath talking winners and losers and injuries. I mean, that's probably why. You know how much Dave hates injuries. Today was not a good day for anyone who hates injuries. It was ugly. And this so far, this will probably change after Tyrod Taylor on Sunday night, obviously. But so far, only 2 quarterbacks have scored more than 24 fantasy points, and that would be Tua and Jared Goff. And I'm going to double check on Jared Goff. He may have actually been right. He was right around there. Goff was at 26. Yeah, okay. So
on the road even.
Yeah. And that's the lowest so far of any week. Week 1, we had 3 quarterbacks do that, score more than 24 points in non-decimal scoring, 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. In weeks 2, 3, 4, and 5, we had 13, 7, 9, and 8 quarterbacks do that. So bad week. And then, Heath just, I don't know. What do we make of it? Similarly, week 1 was pretty bad if we think back to that. So this probably doesn't carry over anything, but gosh, it was ugly today.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that we've still got Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Dak Prescott to go. So I would set the over/under at 3.5 quarterbacks getting to over 24. I think we got a good chance of beating that 3 number. Not 3.5 from the next 4, 3.5 for the week. But yeah, I think I'm just going to I'm gonna not retweet, but it's kind of like retweeting. I'm going to basically show comments throughout the show of people complaining about their teams because that's how we all feel right now. Like, it's okay to just enjoy the negativity.
I don't know. I don't look at my scores until Monday usually, but I don't know. Like, I have a lot of Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, and they didn't have good games, but they're top 10 quarterbacks right now. So that's the good thing. If your quarterback stunk this week, you're probably fine. Let's face Tua or Goff.
Right.
Okay. Biggest winner, biggest loser. Who you got is the biggest winner this week?
Yeah, and I actually sent you a text and said, man, it's going to be tough to find the biggest winner this week. I think I changed my 3 winners 3 different times, but I'm going to go with Drake London. He scored 21.5 fantasy points. It's the second huge target number and big number in terms of fantasy production in 6 weeks. It felt pretty good. Desmond Ridder looked better. London made a couple of really nice plays. I'd kind of gotten to the point I wasn't even considering dropping London, but I was just viewing him as a bench wide receiver who, if I had to flex him, I would. And he might move back into that wide receiver 3 consideration. Another thing I think we need to do, just because I'm going to need to remember this throughout the show, the Bengals, Cowboys, Jets, Panthers, Texans, and Titans are not playing next week.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing that we've got 17 different injuries to manage in terms of the waiver wire. We've also heading into the first bye NATO with 6 teams on a bye.
Yeah. Yeah. You're starting Drake London most likely. But this was a matchup against a team. Like his ADOT today was 11 yards. That's very high, pretty high. And Washington really struggles with the deep ball, struggles with giving up big plays to receivers. So good for him. He's got Tampa Bay next week. And they also struggle. This is another game where they allowed 85 yards or a touchdown to multiple wide receivers in this game. The Tampa Bay Bucks did that Jameson Williams touchdown and Amon-Ra St. Brown torching them. Who's my biggest winner today? I would say it would be Michael Pittman. Now, I hate his next 2 matchups, Cleveland and New Orleans, but I love his rest of season outlook, Michael Pittman. it might get to the point where we're just not really even asking anymore. You might just be starting Michael. I mean, I could see like 2 receiver league, especially if it's not full PPR, but there are going to be a lot of targets for Michael Pittman. And I know it's pronounced Pittman. And Anthony Richardson might be out for the season. He is strongly considering season-ending shoulder surgery, according to multiple reports. Heath is just sharing misery here on the YouTube chat. If you want to check it out,
misery loves company, right?
Absolutely, and everybody gets to watch the Giants with me in 10 minutes. Who's your biggest loser?
Oh my gosh, let's just. I'm trying to stay away from the injuries on the winners and the losers. But I do think that the Vikings. I'll go with an injury from last week. My hopes about the Bears defense being so bad that the loss of Justin Jefferson wouldn't hurt Kirk Cousins didn't prove correct. Yeah, no, I don't care that he only threw 31 passes. He was not good, even on those 31 passes. Jordan Addison didn't turn into a 10-target wide receiver. He had 4. Alexander Mattison couldn't run against the Bears. TJ Hawkinson continues to struggle. If I was doing Believe It or Not tonight, and I'm not, because I'm not just going to ask you 12 questions. We can just talk about the game. But it would be, believe it or not, the Vikings are all going to stink without Justin Jefferson, because that's what it looked like in this game.
They get San Francisco next week. I mean, look, Addison came through, right?
He scored a touchdown.
Madison had 72 total yards and 4 catches. So you had Addison with a touchdown. You had Hawkinson in double digits. You had Madison in double digits. I guess I didn't mind it as much as you did. They only had the ball for 25 minutes.
Okay. You said they play San Francisco next week. And so everybody has these games where they play the Bears and these games where they play the 49ers. And you can't be satisfied with 11 points from all of these guys when they play the Bears, because they have to play the 49ers next week.
Yeah. No, I'm not
11. The exchange rate on fantasy points when you get 11 against the Bears is like 4 against the 49ers.
A good thing for Madison is that Cam Akers only had 2 touches in this game
and made an awful play on a Cousins fumble. Like, just looked like he wasn't actually a football player.
All right. So certainly a bad game for Kirk Cousins. And I think a lot of people are going to be sitting him maybe the next 4 weeks. I mean, San Francisco, at Green Bay, at Atlanta, home against New Orleans. That's a pretty tough stretch for Kirk Cousins. And they did get the win, though. So that's the big thing here, is you really want them to win because you want Justin Jefferson to come back. No, seriously.
Yeah, I don't think Schaefer probably just that's the worst thing. They were terrible. None of them were great in fantasy. And you just moved back like 7 spots in the draft.
My biggest loser is Calvin Ridley, and I can't really deal with it anymore. And I think he has passed the point of must start. I am downgrading him, rest of season. Hopefully a number 2 receiver. He'll definitely have some big weeks, but this should have been one of them because the Colts are a really bad pass defense.
How in the world does Trevor Lawrence throw for? I mean, I want to first off, because my favorite quarterback was in this game and played what I thought was maybe the worst games of his life, Gardner Minshew. But how in the world does Trevor Lawrence face this defense, throw the ball 30 times and come away with 181 yards?
I don't know.
Like, I agree with you that Ridley's a loser because of the fantasy production. I mean, he had fewer fantasy points PPR fantasy points than he did targets, which is a negative. But he also did still lead the team in targets.
Yeah.
If you think that Trevor Lawrence is at some point going to be a good quarterback, then Ridley getting 8 targets a game should be pretty good.
Well, yeah, but here's another issue, right? Like, obviously Etienne's got it going on. They throw to Ingram, they throw to Christian Kirk, they throw to Calvin Ridley, and Zay Jones, they throw to him, and he didn't play in this game.
Right.
I don't think Calvin Ridley's going to be a target dominator. I'm not sure he's going to average 8 targets per game. I'm going to try to look up Trevor Lawrence's air yards per pass attempt, because I'm guessing it was pretty low today if he averaged 6 yards per attempt. It was, Dave, 7.4. It's not that bad, and it's the second highest of his season.
I think he had 2 more passes that were caught out of bounds. Yeah. He's going to set the record. I think maybe he should throw the ball in bounds.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take London or Pittman to talk about our winners over Calvin Ridley, though. But it wouldn't shock me if Pittman were better, I guess.
Pittman, I would. London, I wouldn't, but I would on Pittman. What about Kirk?
Sure. 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 I don't know.
That is a very, you're going to turn into me by the end of this show. All this analysis. Yes.
I don't want to take him over. I think Ridley has more touchdown upside. He gets the end zone targets. He said so many close calls. But Kirk feels a little more consistent. Fine. You know what? I'll cop out. I'll say Kirk in full PPR and Ridley in the other.
There you go.
We have your Apple Podcast. But the best thing to do is get them into me early in the week so they populate, because it does take a while to see them. And then on Apple Podcasts, for some reason, I can't really see all of the questions. So I use this other service that takes a while to display the questions. It's a long story. So if you have an Apple Podcast question, first of all, you got to leave us a 5-star review. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. Always very helpful. And ask your question, and I'll do my best to answer it on the Friday mailbag. Okay, news and notes. Please sit down. There are a lot of them. Justin Fields left in the second half. Oh, I have an explanation for the Jaguars. I forgot.
Oh, okay.
Jet lag. Forgot to mention it. They spent 10 days in London. They came back. They said they were pretty tired. Some of them did anyway. So there you go, Heath. All is well. Justin Fields dislocated his thumb, popped it back in place. They won't know more until tomorrow about his status going forward as the Bears get the Raiders next week.
What would you do if your thumb became dislocated? Do you think you just put it back in place?
Am I alone?
No, your wife, sir.
She would do it for me. What would you do?
I don't know. Never had anything like that. Sounds awful.
I would pass out.
Yeah.
We had an incident in the house the other day with some blood.
Yeah.
And I almost passed out. I am so bad with that stuff. I remember when I was in 8th grade, I cut my thumb right here.
Yeah.
I had to get one stitch. But I almost passed out from the blood. And then I gave blood in high school, and I basically did pass out. I needed smelling salts. So everything you thought about me in those type of situations, it's even worse, people. It's even worse. Trevor Lawrence, meanwhile, hurt his knee late in the game, and I believe they play on Thursday, right?
Yes, he did walk out onto the field to shake hands. So I don't know that it's serious, but he definitely tweaked something on the last sack, which looked pretty silly too.
I'm feeling he should not have been in the game, but anyway, he did not guarantee that he'd play on Thursday. He's kind of said like a we'll see thing. Ryan Tannehill was on crutches after the game. They have a bye. Jimmy Garoppolo left in the second quarter. Brian Hoyer took over for him. You'd have to think Hoyer would get the start against Chicago if it comes to that in week 7 and not Aiden O'Connell. Christian McCaffrey. Oh, probably shouldn't have waited 13 minutes to talk about the best player in Christian McCaffrey leaving with an oblique injury in the third quarter at Minnesota, then Cincinnati, then a bye. What are your thoughts?
If it wasn't for the fact that I try to avoid injuries on winners and losers, I would have put Jordan Mason amongst the winners, because it did seem like he was ahead of Elijah Mitchell today. And Mitchell's 2 carries went for -3 yards, I believe, and Mason scored a touchdown. So if this is going to be a long-term injury for Mason, he should definitely be added across the board. And I would expect him to be the best, but it will be a committee.
I think he has 1 catch in his career also, so keep that in mind, Jordan Mason. So McCaffrey, I think the good news is, if you didn't see it, he basically ran into the locker room. He hurt his oblique, came back in for, I think, 1 play, then he left, then he ran into the locker room. So I don't know if that's any indication of severity, but it wasn't like he was, doubled over in pain or anything like that. David Montgomery left with injured ribs in the second quarter, and
but X-rays were negative.
X-rays were negative, right? They get Baltimore next week. Craig Reynolds took over for him. Kyron Williams left in the fourth quarter with an ankle injury. Sean McVay thinks he's okay. It was just a tweak. Ramondre Stevenson left, and he came back. Deebo Samuel, it's a terrible day for the 49ers. They lose to the Browns with a backup quarterback on a bad day for their rookie kicker. Deebo Samuel left, and Christian McCaffrey left. And Deebo left in the first quarter and did not return. They're at Minnesota next week. DK Metcalf left, and Jake Bobo left with a concussion, or he was checked for one. They both came back. Actually, I don't know if there was anything on this, but Drake London did leave with less than 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I'm assuming he came back or he's fine. So I think we can ignore it. Hopefully the same with Garrett Wilson, who limped off the field late. Jets beat the Eagles. Browns beat the 49ers. Oh man, starting to feel it for Big Blue tonight, Heath.
Yeah. I did want to make a note. Robert Saleh said that Garrett Wilson should be fine.
Oh, okay, great. Let's see. I heard Jonnu Smith caught his first touchdown in 31 games.
And the broadcast team on that game called him Jonnu Smith.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know, but just add that one to the collection of either or.
And Brandon Ayuk, I kept hearing on the broadcast today. Purdy to Ayuk, it was just off today. Purdy was terrible today. That was the worst I've ever seen him. I think the weather originally, it was raining, but then I don't know what his excuse was after that. Some news not from today. Justin Jefferson expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks, but according to Adam Schefter, if the team is not in it, there's a chance he could shut it down and not play. Devon Achane expected to only miss 4 weeks. Anthony Richardson could be out for the season. And then there were some defensive injuries, some offensive line injuries. I think I'll just fill you in on those tomorrow, except I will say the Eagles had a particularly rough day. They lost their right tackle, Lane Johnson, early, and then Reed Blankenship, a safety, left with injured ribs, and defensive back Bradley Roby left with an injury, and they were already playing without Darius Slay. So they were a shell of themselves defensively in the secondary, and look who's coming to town on Sunday night, Miami Dolphins in Week 7. Quick look at the waiver wire here. So Jordan Mason, would he be your number one guy? Because you could have Craig Reynolds in the mix too. Who do you think for the waiver wire?
Yeah, assuming that McCaffrey's injury is going to cost him a week, then Jordan Mason would be the top guy. Craig Reynolds, who do they play next week? I'm not particularly excited about him. I don't think they're going to throw it to him a whole lot. It looks like they are at Baltimore next week. I would like, he's going to be someone we add, but it could be an Amari DeMarcado situation.
Oh, what? We're going to do superlatives at the end of the year. Amari DeMarcado is going to be the worst waiver wire pickup of the season.
And the worst part is like that we talked about it a little bit. Early in the week, we said Keaontay Ingram's missed 2 games. If he comes back, he might have a big role. And he did. But that wasn't the thing that killed Amari DeMarcado. It's that Damian Williams still exists.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And had almost as many carries as Keaontay Ingram.
Yeah.
They gave him like 3 drives.
Other players you could pick up, Rashee Rice, Curtis Samuel. Thank you to Chris for this list. Maybe Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt was pretty even with Jerome Ford. Not quite, but he had a pretty busy day, Kareem Hunt.
One of my winners, I don't know. Did he ever get to, I'm not sure if he ever got to 65%, but Dalton Schultz.
Dalton Schultz is 70%.
70, okay.
Yeah, the only problem with Dalton Schultz, we'll talk about it in a bit. He's gone on a bye this week, and to me, a pretty clear, I don't know if it's causation, but a clear spike in targets basically as soon as Tank Dell got hurt.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we've got some buy or sell. We've got some winners and losers. And maybe we'll have time to get to your comments in YouTube today. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Buy or sell time. I got 3 buy or sells for Heath Cummings. Buy or sell, Sam Howell is legit. He has now scored 21.6 or more points in 4 of 6 games. Buy or sell, Sam Howell's legit.
I think he is legit as a borderline number 1 quarterback, matchup dependent starter. Week 7, we've got 6 guys on a bye. Justin Fields might be hurt. Trevor Lawrence might be hurt. Sam Howell's at the Giants. Fire him up, top 10 option. The following week, he's at home against the Eagles. No, thank you.
I don't know. It's tough with the Eagles. We got to see the health of their secondary.
Right.
But they've been a pretty good matchup so far. It's tough to trust them against any team with pass rushers. But buy or sell, Dameon Pierce is just going to be a bust this season.
Oh, buy 100%. I don't know where this Devin Singletary game came from, but it's just, we can keep finding different excuses for what's going wrong with Dameon Pierce. And Jamie said this morning on FFT that Dameon Pierce is a buy, hold him through his buy, start him the following week. I believe it's against Carolina, and then sell him. And maybe you can pull that off. But I don't know that one good game is going to make anybody want to buy him. We thought this team was going to be bad, and they're not. They're at least average. They've got a good quarterback, and he can't get anything done. And now the offensive line was halfway back today.
He's having just a horrible year, Dameon Pierce. I mean, you got to figure there's some regression, I guess, to just being better. He's averaging like 2.9 yards per carry. He has the 5th worst percentage of carries for 0 or negative yards. But at the same time, he also ranks toward the bottom in explosive run rate. So, it's okay to have those negative plays when you counter them with explosive plays. But Dameon Pierce isn't doing that. But I brought it up because you may not have noticed it in the games or whatever, but this was arguably the worst week for him because Devin Singletary had 12 carries and Dameon Pierce had 13. And it wasn't like, Pierce got him early and there was no garbage time or anything. I think they were just alternating series.
Singletary had 2 targets and Pierce had 0.
Yeah, bad development here. And they both worked toward the goal line. I do think I would say that I saw Pierce at the goal line more often.
But, yeah. And you know where he went from there? Stayed there. He did not go into the end zone.
Buy or sell. Adam Thielen is better than the following wide receivers rest of season: Calvin Ridley, Chris Olave, Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, Davante Smith. Adam Thielen is better than all of them: Ridley, Olave, Waddle, Higgins, Smith.
No, I'll sell that. Gosh, I hope that's not true. I could see him being better. Let's go through them one by one, and I'll just say yes or buy or sell.
Adam Thielen is better than Calvin Ridley rest of season.
Buy.
Better than Chris Olave rest of season.
Sell.
Better than Jalen Waddle rest of season.
Sell.
Better than T. Higgins rest of season.
Buy.
Better than Davante Smith rest of season.
Buy.
Oh, 3 buys and 2 sells. Thielen. I love it. Yeah, man. 111 catches, 115 yards, 1 touchdown. His 17-game pace, Adam Thielen, right now, is 139 catches, 1,442 yards, 11 touchdowns on just under 10 targets per game, 167 target pace.
Okay, I'll take the under. But I do think, like I wrote this week that I thought he was a hold and not a sell because I didn't think that you could get better than maybe low-end wide receiver 2 value for him. Maybe that'll change now. Maybe he's done enough to where you could get, but I think he's a borderline number 1 the rest of the year, as long as he stays healthy.
And the funny thing is, week 1, Adam Thielen had 2 catches for 12 yards on 2 targets. Since then, it's just been ridiculous. The worst game he's had was 14.6 points. All right, so the winners and the losers. Let's talk about Heath's winners. They are Dalton Schultz, Keaontay Ingram, and Drake London. So, yeah, what do you think about Schultz? The fact that, what do you think about the Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz thing?
I think it's possible that the Tank Dell thing is responsible for him getting the 10 targets last week, especially. But today it wasn't so much that. It was just that he's turning into a red zone target. Touchdowns in each of his last 3 games. Again, he has a good quarterback, and he's produced 13 fantasy points or more 3 weeks in a row. I think he's probably a hold through the bye, and you just plan on starting him. And if he goes, you probably have to go 2 weeks without producing before I'm going to go away from him again. I do think that there's a chance Tank Dell comes back and he sees his targets become a little bit less guaranteed, but I think he remains a top red zone target.
Would you rather have Dalton Schultz or Kyle Pitts rest of season?
I still think Pitts has more upside, although when we get to your winners, we can talk about Kyle Pitts. And I've changed Keaontay Ingram 6 times. I said, no, not Keaontay Ingram. It's actually Garrett Wilson. I said, no, not Garrett Wilson. It's actually Kendrick Bourne. But I do think it's worth saying, like, Keaontay Ingram did have half of their running back carries, and I believe half of their running back targets, and he was the top guy, and he wasn't bad. He made 1 nice grab. He had a couple of nice runs. I think he's the best Cardinals running back to roster in James Conner's absence. And I have hope. I don't know why I say I have hope. I still have hope about Trey McBride that maybe they'll stop throwing the ball to Zach Ertz and turning inaccurate passes into interceptions. But I have hope that Damian Williams won't matter for very much longer.
Yeah, so Trey McBride actually is one that I wanted. As Dave is usually here, I wanted to see what his snap count was. Oh, wow. This is interesting. I mean, this is by far a career high in snaps. 43 for McBride. He ran a season high. I don't know if I may have said career high. I meant season high. Season high in snaps, season high in routes, and not even close.
Yeah.
and targeted on 24% of his routes. So Trey McBride is interesting here if they want to get him more involved, because he really has just not been involved at all. This is a second-year tight end for the Arizona Cardinals, Trey McBride. Okay, so Keaontay, you want to talk about Garrett Wilson? I think he's a great winner to discuss here.
Yeah, I think and it's kind of like the Drake London thing. It's like, how many good games can we stack to where we can feel bad about just starting him through the bad games? Because there's still going to be some bad games. There's injuries to this Philadelphia defense, but it was still not a great matchup. And he continues to just absolutely dominate targets. I think the only time you worry about Garrett Wilson is when the Jets are in a position to where they can maybe not throw the ball more than 20 times, because 20 pass attempts equals 7 targets for Garrett Wilson. 30 equals 10 targets for Garrett Wilson. We just need to get Zach Wilson to 30 pass attempts, and Garrett Wilson's going to be a must-start wide receiver.
I don't know why the Eagles didn't shadow him with James Bradbury. Also, I must apologize. I said it was a 2-man show, and I don't know why. I just completely forgot about Jamie, who is here with us now.
Good.
Hello, Jamie.
What happened to Dave?
I think Dave's not feeling well tonight, and no, I haven't been around him, so can't blame me.
I was around him. I hope he's not feeling bad.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I hope he's okay. Yeah, we're doing our winners and losers right now. So far, we've talked about Dalton Schultz, Keaontay Ingram, and Garrett Wilson.
Drake London, Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, and then the last Julian already talked about. So Michael Pittman was my first winner. My other winners are Kyle Pitts and Michael Mayer. I'll just say this real quick on Michael Mayer. During that Monday night game, 2 Monday nights ago, one of the best games of the year, the Raiders. I don't remember who they played. Raiders-Packers. It was such a memorable game that you may have missed it. The announcers said that the Raiders wanted to get Michael Mayer more involved. It happened early in that game. It didn't really amount to anything. But in this game, he had 6 targets. He led the team with 75 yards. I'm not picking him. I'm putting him on my radar to see what happens. Obviously, he's got a nice pedigree, talented rookie tight end. So I just put him. I wanted to make sure we spoke about him. But let's talk about Kyle Pitts.
Well, just real quick, because we had the CBS crew at this game, and Tom Spencer did talk him up as well.
Okay.
So obviously, it's something that the coaching staff has been, I think, hoping to see and trying to get him more involved. And I think it kind of coincides with Davante Adams with the shoulder injury. He has not looked like himself. And so I would not be surprised if this is something to keep an eye on. And absolutely 100% you want to add him if you can carry 2 tight ends.
Okay. So yeah, let's talk about Kyle Pitts. He was started in 62% of leagues, and he goes for 4 for 43 and a touchdown a week after 7 catches for 87 yards. There was an ESPN article earlier this week about how he was getting healthier. So I put him on the winners list. At least you can have a little bit of confidence that you don't have to go pick up another tight end. You can just start Kyle Pitts, I guess.
I think the winner part of it is the fact that if you started him off of last week's big game, you got rewarded with a touchdown. The part that bothers me is he had a 12.5% target share. Like 4 for 43 on 6 targets is pretty great when Desmond Ridder throws it 30 times. When Desmond Ridder throws it 47 times, it's not quite as great.
And Jonnu Smith is still a factor. I mean, you're right. You're right, but I don't know what to do about it. No one's gonna buy Kyle Pitts. I don't think. I'm not gonna be able to trade him for anything.
No.
So,
Well, I think if he has another big game, and by big game, I think it's kind of a combination of what we saw the last 2 games, where he's more catches, more yards, and still scores. There's probably a sell window there if you want to, but it just depends. Like, what are you moving on from? What are you going? Like, look what happened to the streaming tight ends that we talked about this week. Cole Kmet. No, I don't want to say streaming tight ends, but the guys that we've picked up over the last couple of weeks. Logan Thomas, Cole Kmet. What did they do? Now you could say Kmet clearly injury related. There'll be a Michael Mayer at some point. There'll be a Luke Musgrave at some point. There'll be a Dawson Knox may have a good game tonight just because there's no Dalton Kincaid. Like, we're gonna go through this.
Yeah.
Tight end roulette game. If Pitts is going to start to pick up some momentum and some steam, I'm going to just ride it out.
Yeah, that's probably what I'll do too. Jamie, you do not have to have any, but do you want to have any winners? Or we can just go on to the losers.
I don't know what you guys have already discussed, so no.
Okay. One winner we didn't discuss, by the way, is Breece Hall. He's got the bye this week, and if you didn't see his touchdown, the Eagles actually let him score, so they could have a chance to get the ball back with time and score themselves. But I just feel like Breece Hall is going to just take over fantasy in the second half, and it's really
exciting. Have a big finish, yeah.
All right, here are my losers. Calvin Ridley, who already talked about, Rachaad White and Davante Adams. I just don't think you can start Rachaad White in any type of tough matchup, which is the case again against Atlanta next week. And also, he had basically the same amount of carries as Keyshawn Vaughn. So my question is, are you going to trust Rachaad White in a good matchup, Heath?
Trust, no. But like, does he play in week 7? If you're a running back and you play in week 7, there's a pretty decent chance that you're going to get a top 24 ranking. He'll be a low end number 2. He also got dinged in this game and left for at least a little while.
Okay.
So I don't know what his health status is, but I know he was in towards the end, so I don't think it's a concern. But I think that was part of the reason we saw more sharing. But no, it's a terribly inefficient run game right now.
We're back to where we were last year. They can't run the ball.
He's had a tough schedule, I think, though. I mean, Minnesota, well, yeah, he was great against Chicago. And then look at the other teams he's faced. Minnesota, they have a good run defense. Philadelphia, they have an amazing run defense. They were missing one of their best run stuffers today. Still did a nice job against Hall. New Orleans, they're tough against the run. And then today for Rachaad White, it was Detroit, arguably the best run defense in football. So, again, you got to get through the Atlanta matchup next week. And then it's not that. I mean, then there's still some Tennessee and San Francisco, but
the thing that sucks is where's the passing game work? Like that was, I know we all sit here and say, okay, it was Brady and that was a big part of it, but Baker's tendencies have shown that he's thrown to his running backs and it's just not happening to that level. I don't know if it's just that he has so much of a reliance on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and just trying to push the ball down the field. But that's been the thing that's, I at least for me, when I was looking at Rachaad White this offseason was he'll still be heavily involved in that aspect of the game. And it's not like he's not playing in that role. He's just not getting the production in that role.
Okay, my last loser was Davante Adams, and I'd love to know what you guys think about that. Jamie, Davante Adams goes for 2 for 29 on 5 targets. That's 9 targets in his last 2 games combined. Yes, it certainly has coincided with the shoulder injury. What should Davante Adams managers be doing and thinking right now?
If you could sell him based on his name, I would do so. If you can buy him cheap on the other side of it, I would probably try to do so also, just with the hope that he gets healthy. But, this is, I was thinking about this today and go back to our conversation in the preseason about 30-year-old receivers and how they start to fall off. And again, I don't know if it's shoulder related, if it's quarterback play related, but now you're going to potentially backup quarterback if the back injury is bad for Garoppolo. You also have, if Garoppolo's there, his reliance on Jacoby Myers and now maybe another guy emerging. So I don't know if Davante is going to bounce back to the level that we saw. There's still the potential for it. So that's why, like I said, if you can get him cheap, I would do so. But I don't think we're going to get that top end level production. We're certainly not going to get the guy that we saw last year. I just don't think he's going to get that many targets like we saw.
How long until the Raiders bye?
It is.
It's a late one, 13.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I'm going to get Chicago next week. Come on, get right. Get right, Davante. All right, Heath, you're losers. I know you got a T. Higgins in there. You got Minnesota, who we already talked about. T. Higgins, and really Burrow had a bad game, but Burrow
and DeAndre Hopkins.
And DeAndre Hopkins, who had a terrible game. 1 catch for 20 yards on 5 targets, started in 66% of leagues. All right, break it down. Higgins and Hopkins, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, Higgins came back and just wasn't that involved. You have to wonder how healthy he is. Joe Burrow didn't quite look like Joe Burrow, at least not as much as he did last week. You got both of these guys going into their bye weeks, and I don't know that you're going to be able to feel completely comfortable starting them coming out of their bye week. Higgins playing against the 49ers and Hopkins just because of what Hopkins has been so far, and who knows what Ryan Tannehill is going to be. And so I'm not sure either one of these guys are going to be started for the next 2 weeks. They are the types of guys, and I think this is going to be a big focus of this week with 6 teams on a bye with all of these injuries. There are decimated rosters out there sitting at 2-4 and 1-5. Like, if you have a good record right now, this is the time to go buy guys. I'm not sure I'm buying Higgins or Hopkins, though.
If you had to pick one, who would you buy?
Probably Higgins. Hopkins, because I think he's cheaper. I don't think
Higgins for sure for me, just because, again, if there's no Ryan Tannehill, like Malik Willis is just not going to help DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. Tough game. Okay. And see some other things here. So almost touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence had an almost touchdown pass that got down to the 2-yard line, and then Travis Etienne ran it in.
That's never happened to him.
Yeah, I know, right? Brandon Ayuk had a lot of plays, drops, bad throws. Could have had a huge game. Brock Purdy missed Christian McCaffrey on a route that he had the guy beat. Could have been a long touchdown. Purdy would have been a 54-yard touchdown. Purdy missed him badly. Jahan Dotson dropped a deep ball. I don't know if it would have been a touchdown. Tough week for start of the week, Matthew Stafford, because Puka Nacua and Tyler Higbee both dropped touchdowns on different possessions. Could have been a 3-touchdown day for Stafford. I'm going to give Jamie the win. And no. Josh Dobbs underthrew Marquise Brown, which should have been a 37-yard touchdown. And later, he threw another terrible deep ball to Marquise Brown, which should have been an even longer touchdown. And that is something that Josh Dobbs really struggles with. He is inaccurate on the deep ball, and it showed up today in a big way for Marquise Brown, who there was a lot of points left on the board. There were a lot of points left on the board.
Two things. I thought you were going to say one of the things Josh Dobbs really struggles with and then just say throwing. But the second thing is you won't have to give Jamie the win if the rest of the week keeps going like this week is. Matthew Stafford's currently the number 12 quarterback for the week.
Look at that. Look at that. There you go. I mean, Jamie, what a crappy week.
It was bad. It was very frustrating watching a lot of these games, and as Heath has said a couple times now we're down 6 teams next week. So, and the weird thing is about it, there's like some really high end matchups next week. You got Dolphins, Eagles is going to be a fun one. You got Chiefs, Chargers should be a fun one. There's another big one.
Don't fall for that trick. The Chiefs are bad for fantasy. They suck on offense and they're amazing on defense.
They might be. There's another good game though. Why am I missing it? It's
49ers.
Baltimore. Baltimore, Detroit. That's a good one.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great one.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Good week. What else? Anything else? San Fran, Minnesota. No. That's Monday night. All right.
Commanders and the Giants.
Big game. Big game. That's all right. We're gonna take a break here. We'll come back and we'll talk about all the games, starting with the London game. Thankfully, we have a couple of weeks before another London game, and we'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Baltimore 24, Tennessee 16. All right. So wait, are you gonna do Believe It or Not or no?
I had not planned on doing Believe It or Not because I thought you had told me it was just you and I, and so I didn't do any preparation for it because I thought it'd be dumb if I was just asking you questions. But I'm glad to see you are getting excited about something because you tried to tell me at 11:30 this morning or 11:50 that you're like just completely dead to the Giants and you don't care. And I can see like when something happens, your eyes light up and there's this little sparkle of hope still.
No, that's the great thing. I still get that sparkle of hope, but I am not going to be the least bit upset when they lose. And I won't care at all.
At this point, you should be hoping for. Do they have a first round pick?
Yeah, they have a first round pick.
Yeah, you should be hoping for them to lose this point.
Well, he should have been hoping for that for the last 13 calendar months.
I've done enough hoping for that. I'm done with that. That's not fun for fans. That's fun for the other teams' fans who judge those teams. Say, oh, you should be rooting them to lose. Most fans still want their team to win in week 6. All right. So Baltimore 24, Tennessee 16. Ravens really controlled everything in this game, but they just could not get in the end zone. They were terrible inside the 10-yard line. And anyway, Heath, I know what I was going to say to you. You never prepare for Believe It or Not. This is nothing unlike other weeks.
I have notes from last week where I wrote down the questions.
Have I? Okay. I can do it if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Believe it or not, Lamar Jackson is still a top 5 quarterback rest of season.
Believe it.
Believe it. Yeah.
I would love to make the buy low case on Lamar Jackson. Last week, he had terrible drops. His receivers really let him down. This week, again, like I said, I mean, they controlled the clock. They moved up and down the field. They just couldn't score. They couldn't get in the end zone. But I really think he's playing pretty well.
Yep.
So that's my case. You know, I just
he does have too many dumb turnovers, and the red zone struggles have been a thing for a couple of years. But I agree. I think he's going to be better than he has been for sure.
Okay, it is a pretty difficult schedule going forward. Detroit, Arizona, Seattle. Cleveland, Cincinnati. That's really not easy, but hopefully he can come through. Anything? All right, we'll go to Zay. You want to talk about Zay Flowers? He had 8 more targets. He caught a touchdown.
Must start receiver.
Derrick Henry. Jamie, I thought it was interesting. The best run for Derrick Henry, a 62-yard run, because they showed a graphic about he's always facing a stacked box, always. But in this play, they ran Wildcat with him, a direct snap to him. They got a wide receiver going in motion behind him. He fakes it to him. It was a great play. Moved the linebackers over, and then he took off for a 62-yard run. But I know it's like we don't have great vibes on Derrick Henry this year. He came through today. What do you think?
I'd be selling. I mean, the name still certainly carries a lot of weight, and his performance today will certainly be exciting for people. But that's kind of where they are right now with him. They got to be a lot of gimmicky stuff. He's just not getting the blocking up front. That's a big part of it. And the explosive runs just aren't there at this point. Now, we've seen this before from him where it's taken, to the second half of the season for him to get going. But at 29, with bad potential quarterback play coming up and a bad offensive line still, if you could turn Derrick Henry into something great, I would try and do that immediately.
All right. Miami 42, Carolina 21. You want me to? Just me again?
You do this one and I'll do the rest of them. I'm sorry.
Okay. Believe it or not, Chuba Hubbard is the best Panthers running back rest of season.
Yeah. He's the healthy one right now.
Unless Sanders' injury lingers, I would say not. They go into a bye and they come out with Houston. I would expect that Sanders, assuming that he's healthy, will have 60% of the running back touches against Houston.
Okay, on the other side, we've been in this boat before with Raheem Mostert. Should we be looking to sell? Because we've been in this boat.
This yacht, this beautiful.
I've never been in this boat before. This boat is fantastic.
Earlier this season, I mean, where he was like the guy, right? And I felt like, I don't know if you remember the Achane breakout game against the Broncos, and Mostert also had a good game. I said, Raheem Mostert's actually a loser in this game because he's got serious competition. Well, he doesn't right now, but he will. So should we be selling Raheem Mostert before it's too late?
Well, I mean, yes and no. Yes, because, down the road, plus he's 31. Down the road, he's going to get some competition from Achane coming back because we got the report this morning that it's not going to be more than probably the 4 games. But at the same time, is Jeff Wilson going to be significant competition for him? You could make a case for and against, right? Because we saw it last year, but he's never performed like this, Raheem Mostert. But the problem is he's 31 years old. And so at some point, is he going to slow down or break down? And if that happens, you're going to wish you had sold him. So I think if you're looking at it, the next 3 games should hopefully be very productive and still, even with the matchup against Philadelphia, I don't know who they have after that, but it's one of those things where like you got to get something pretty amazing in return from him right now because he's the best running back in fantasy.
Would you? Yeah,
you got Derrick Henry on your team.
I was about to ask that. Yeah,
you get that offer, Raheem Mostert for Derrick Henry.
I'd keep Mostert.
I would too.
I think I'd rather have Henry.
I mean, with the way this Dolphins offense is right now, like I'm just going to keep Mostert until just if it falls apart, it falls apart.
They are historic, man. It's crazy.
It is, and I know that take into the fact that they lost the game. Is Tua the MVP right now still?
I don't know who else it would be.
I think he's playing for it next week. Like they can't go get boat raced by the Eagles next week.
For sure.
What about Josh Allen? I mean, Josh Allen's obviously playing right now, but Josh Allen's Bills did beat the Dolphins by like 20 points or something like that.
But they have 2 losses too still.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, it's not Trevor Lawrence or Gardner Minshew. Let's go to our next game, Heath. Jacksonville 37, Indianapolis 20.
Can I use the one from last week?
Just go back to Dalton for a second. Are we done worrying about Jalen Waddle?
I'd like to see some big plays, right? Like, what's going on here? 7 games. Because Tyreek Hill gets every deep ball. Give one to Jalen Waddle every now and then. I'm done even thinking about. I never thought about benching him, but I did bench him this week actually for Puka Nacua. But typically, I would never bench him.
I'm done worrying about him being a guy that I should start every week. I'm not done worrying about him justifying an early 3rd round or late 2nd round draft pick.
That's Jalen Waddle. All right, Jacksonville 37, Indianapolis 20, Heath.
Okay, so I've got 2, but one of them is just kind of to be a jerk because it's the same thing I did last week. Trevor Lawrence is an even bigger buy low. Are you still buying low on Trevor Lawrence?
Who's selling Trevor Lawrence at this point, though? Like,
I would assume anybody could get a starter at another position.
But if you have Lawrence and Tua, yes, you're selling Trevor Lawrence. You have who do you feel more comfortable with moving forward, Lawrence or Cousins?
Lawrence. But
I probably Cousins for me, but I've been lower on Lawrence. I think it's almost the same thing Dave said last week when it was the Darren Waller question. Like, if you could get a good player at another position, I'll just stream. I can get what Trevor Lawrence is giving me out of a streamer.
Well, that's fair, but now you have the Justin Fields manager trying to stream. You have 6 teams on a bye. You're not going to just, I'm going to waiver. I'm going to get whoever I want.
I don't buy that streaming argument. I mean, you got in a 10-team league, maybe, but some leagues I'm looking at streamers and Jimmy Garoppolo is the best one out there. You know what I mean? Like Sam Howell's not rostered and Stafford's rostered. I don't know that I can get a streamer.
There's probably some recency bias with what I'm about to say, but look at the quarterback play we're getting this week. Lawrence is in the mix to still be top 10 on a weekly basis.
Well, if you like 18 points, he does that every week.
What's that?
If you like 18 points, he does that every week. Let's talk about the Colts running backs, guys. Pretty even split here. Moss 7 carries, Taylor 8 carries. They both had 5 or 6 catches. Moss had a touchdown in this game. Who do you like better rest of season? And whoever that player is, how good is that player going to be?
I would guess that Taylor starts to take off, if not at this point within the next 2 weeks. So I would definitely take Taylor. How good? I think Moss will be a problem for him, probably to a bigger extent than we've ever seen when Taylor was at his peak. But, if they're going to try and be still a contender, you can't put the ball in Gardner Minshew's hands. That was proven today. He looked terrible, and the matchups are coming up are terrible. So I think it's going to start to maybe lean toward Taylor, I hope, taking over the offense. Again, I don't know if it happens against Cleveland in week 7, but moving forward, I think it'll be the Jonathan Taylor show.
Yeah, I mean, if there's 13 running back targets available like there were today, then they'd probably both be fine. But I would definitely take Taylor, and I would say Taylor is going to be, from this point forward, RB 14.
Okay. Taylor played more on 3rd down, but for the most part, it was pretty even Steven. I think that's pretty good for this game. Yeah. All right. Let's go to Minnesota 19, Chicago 13.
We talked so much about, I don't even know what to say about the Bears.
DJ Moore. I mean, he did have 50-ish yards. That was nice.
He's in trouble if Justin Fields is out.
The Bears don't have a fantasy starter if Justin Fields is out.
I want to see Roschon. I don't think, you alluded to this. If you tell me right now, Roschon Johnson's playing next week, which I would hope is the case coming off the concussion, and you said Rachaad White's a top 24 running back, I was definitely starting Roschon Johnson, sight unseen, over Rachaad White.
But what about Foreman? I mean, I think Roschon Johnson is coming back to a committee one way or the other.
Yes.
Depends.
All right. Foreman was okay today. 15 carries, 65 yards, 1 catch, which is a lot for him, for 2 yards. And that's it. Okay. Houston 20, New Orleans 13.
CJ Stroud is a top 10 quarterback rest of season.
Yeah.
He's so impressive. I got another one because I've been fighting this battle with my dynasty rankings, and it's not going to be a battle for me probably anymore. But CJ Stroud should be ranked ahead of Trevor Lawrence in dynasty.
No, I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I mean,
And that's
Lawrence
not even
better. Lawrence is a better quarterback, but statistically, Stroud might just be better than him.
I'm very impressed with CJ Stroud. Yeah, go ahead, Heath.
I was gonna say that's not even like I do a lot of just joking around about Trevor Lawrence, but that's just how impressed. Like CJ Stroud is freaking legit. I don't know what there is. I don't know what there is to doubt about him.
He didn't have an amazing game today from a fantasy standpoint. 18 points.
He was playing the Saints.
Yeah, 18 points against New Orleans is pretty impressive.
I was going to say that. Yeah, no, he's doing a great job. They're not running for any touchdowns, and I think that's kind of part of it. Like ETN scoring a lot of touchdowns. Bigsby has some touchdowns. Dameon Pierce is not getting in the end zone. I think that might even things out a little bit between those two guys. But it's a great question from a dynasty standpoint. In fact, Schaefer, we got about 20 minutes left in the show. Can you get a YouTube poll up? Who would you rather have in dynasty, CJ Stroud or Trevor Lawrence? I'm still going to go with Trevor Lawrence. I still think there's an elite player there. And I think he's having a good year. It hasn't really shown up for fantasy yet.
Do you think there's an elite player there with CJ Stroud?
Quite possibly, yeah.
That's the thing is I'm starting to think is why wouldn't we think that with what he's done?
I would like, and it's not necessarily the player that I'm going to name is the reason why I think Trevor Lawrence has struggled, but they're missing somebody to stretch the field right now, and Zay Jones not being there has been a problem for them.
Okay, let's see. Anything else from this game? On the other side of the ball, it was nice to see Olave. Now, it was a 50 pass attempt game for Derek Carr, but Olave with 10 targets, 7 catches for 96 yards. Michael Thomas now 6 straight games with 9.3 to 12.5 PPR fantasy points. I would call him the most predictable player in fantasy. Any thoughts on getting what you can for Kamara? I'm just going to say this. I've seen other people suggest this. I don't feel this way, but get what you can for Kamara before Jamal Williams comes back.
It's not a Jamal Williams thing. I think it's a 28-year-old running back that is getting a lot of touches that may or may not put him in jeopardy at some point. Like he almost got murdered on one play today where, I forget the defender, but like a little bit of a low shot at his knees. And I was like, oh boy, but he bounced back and was fine. But, look, he's not young. And at some point, this may become a little bit of an issue. But no, I wouldn't necessarily be giving away.
Would you rather have Raheem Mostert or Alvin Kamara?
Mostert.
I'll take Kamara.
I'm going Kamara there. How many catches does he have in 3 games? He's got to have. Well, he had the 13 catch game. But what do you have? 7 today? He had 7 catches. Cincinnati 17, Seattle.
One of Mostert's 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. I know. Mostert, I mean, I love Mostert. What a freaking story. Heath, Cincinnati 17, Seattle 13.
Jamar Chase is the only must-start Bengal coming off their bye.
I'm selling it. I'm not believing it.
They're at San Francisco.
Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Burrow's still going to be a top 10 quarterback, and Mixon will still be a top 24 running back.
But definitely not must start.
I mean,
he stinks. Oh, God. He stinks.
Joe Burrow averaged 5.3 yards per attempt today.
Burrow had a bad game.
He's had one good game against the Cardinals.
He's going to get healthy. He's got the week off, man. He's going to get healthy. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, for me, it doesn't take much for me to believe in a guy that I think we all probably thought was one of the best quarterbacks in football.
Right.
I know he's a better player than this.
Oh, I think so too. I don't think we have anyone on a bye in week 8. I think there's for some reason 6 buys in week 7, 0 buys in week 8.
I'm not looking forward to that week. But I honestly am not convinced that the calf was the reason he struggled today. I just think he stunk today. Sometimes it happens. I don't know if you saw, he had one play where he scrambled like extensively and escaped a lot of pressure. A guy with a bad calf probably doesn't do that, but
I don't think it's a health thing. Yeah,
it could be. I have no idea, but he's not the same guy he was a few weeks ago. He's obviously better. But what about Higgins? Are you going to start Higgins in week 8 against the Niners?
With everybody, if everybody's healthy per se and no teams on a bye, he will probably be a top 36 receiver, but not a top 24 guy.
I think, yeah, I had him 36 today. That's probably pretty close to where he'll be in week 8. I mean, we don't know how many guys are going to get hurt in the next week, but
yeah. All right, what do you think of the passing game for the Seahawks, Heath? You were low on them, and Geno Smith certainly came through for you with 11 points. Sorry. But Lockett was good. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
It was a pretty gross outing, but Tyler Lockett was good. JSN, 5 targets is pretty much about where he's been. DK had another game where he left for a while and then came back. You're going to have a heck of a time Azor-statting his season next year. I'm still concerned that we're not getting the same Seattle passing game that we got last year at any point.
All right, and let's go to our next game. It is Cleveland 19, San Francisco 17.
Ugh.
Survivor pools. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I took the Eagles against the Jets. Yeah, this one. So we can't really talk about Debo or McCaffrey or Purdy or George Kittle's droppable.
No.
Right. I mean, this is exactly what the George Kittle manager should be waiting for.
Yes.
It should have been a better game, but Purdy stunk today. But no McCaffrey, no Debo. Wow. That's a huge opportunity for Kittle.
That's why Purdy stunk today, right?
I don't think so, dude.
I think you got to get, look, I gave you the stat, Adam. Prisco had a 1 game difference, but whether it's 7-1 or 8-1, Jim Schwartz has owned Kyle Shanahan either as a head coach coordinator for both those guys, offense coordinator and head coach for Shanahan, defense coordinator and head coach for Schwartz. So yeah, it's not a good matchup for Kyle Shanahan's offense. Plus going on the road, plus coming off the big game last week against Dallas. I don't think we gave that enough of paid enough attention to that, the emotional letdown potential, plus early start, the weather.
Yeah. That is true. Like, it's a cross-country trip and a 1:00 game is never easy. But look, Heath, I know McCaffrey definitely hurt, but he just was so off target today. I mean, terrible. So, it was, I don't want to make any excuses for Purdy. He was bad, and I think he could have had an okay game. But I think Brock Purdy is a must sit as long as McCaffrey and Debo are out, buy or sell.
He's at Minnesota next week.
You trust them if those 2 guys are out?
With all the teams on a bye, it's very difficult to sit Brock Purdy if he's been your guy.
All right.
Like the one guy that's out there potentially that I would start over him would be Howell.
What do you make of the backfield for the Browns? You had Jerome Ford with 17 carries for 84 yards, 2 catches for 7 yards. You had Kareem Hunt with 12 for 47 and a touchdown and 3 catches for 24 yards. And you had Ford really salting the game away with some, well, I can't say that because the 49ers had the chance to win. But Ford had some very impressive runs late in the game. But that gauntlet of a schedule, that part is over now. So what do you make of the backfield, Jamie?
Actually, when you asked me winners, that was one guy that I thought of was potentially Jerome Ford. But, the workload for Kareem Hunt was a little bit disturbing. I guess the Giants did something stupid.
No, no, I was going to say the schedule is actually not that much easier. I mean, Indianapolis, Seattle, Baltimore in a few weeks, but no more injuries. But yeah, go ahead. Jerome Ford is a winner.
The fact that he performed like this without Joel Bitonio, without Deshaun Watson, should give you some reason for encouragement. Because look, I don't know if Jerome Ford's ever going to crack the top 15. He probably is going to live somewhere between like 18 and 30 on most people's rank list for the majority of the rest of the season. But as long as he's getting these opportunities, even with Kareem Hunt still taking some work away, you should feel pretty good about him as at least a flex. So this was a extremely encouraging performance against the defense that he played. And Dre Greenlaw should probably be out there for the 49ers. I don't know if he was the key to what this run defense looked like, but they were bad.
Washington 24, Atlanta 16.
Terry McLaurin's going to be a must-start wide receiver.
No. It's a good question, though.
I think he'll live in that number 3 receiver range. This was good, but it's only his second really good game this season. So just surprising that he did it against the secondary.
What the hell, Jahan Dotson? 1 catch. Oh, no, 1 target.
No, he didn't catch it.
No, he did not. Goodbye.
Well, what the hell, Logan Thomas?
Yeah. The MO on the Falcons is wide receivers struggle, tight ends kill them. And that was not. And by the way, no team throws to the tight end basically as much as the Commanders, but not any of that today. Sorry, folks.
Fooled you.
Fooled you.
Well, I do remember, what was it Patrick Mahomes said at the beginning of last year? Fantasy football managers are going to hate our team because it's going to be a different guy every week. And that's kind of what Washington's been. It's been about 2 Logan Thomas weeks, 2 Terry McLaurin weeks, no Jahan Dotson weeks, none of those. But yeah.
Well, I got news for you, Mahomes. I kind of hate your team this year too for fantasy. Bijan Robinson, you guys disappointed if you're a Bijan manager? Not today, but for the season.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a little bit scared because I've seen what whatever his name is, Arthur Smith does. And there's another game with more carries for Algier.
It's like he's just afraid to play his best players for the last 2 seasons, like just to feature his best players. I just don't get it.
I had the same number of carries. They were talking on the broadcast that he told them that he was talking about how special Robinson is. And he says, I just have to be really careful with how I use him. I've got to manage his touches.
But at the same time, he's running routes all the time. He gets a lot of catches. It's not bad, but it's not going to be like RB3 necessarily. But it's frustrating because we don't see this often from them. They're not down there that often, I guess. But I don't think he's the goal line back. No. They ran a 2-point conversion, and it was Algier.
Yeah. I'm going to be very interested to see how our trade works out by the end of the season if Jefferson comes back.
Jefferson and Madison for Bijan and Waddle. That was the trade. Okay, next game is Las Vegas 21 and New England 17.
And again, we made that trade before Jefferson was hurt.
Yeah.
I think somebody actually asked this one in the chat, and so I'm not going to give him credit. I'm not going to put it on the screen, but I'm going to use it. Jacoby Myers is better than Davante Adams rest of the season.
I hope not, but if this shoulder injury is a problem, I mean, it's hard to say that it's guaranteed that Davante's better. But look, Myers has been the better of the two. We forgot one revenge game narrative today. 2,
What's
actually. Raiders defensive coordinator Patrick Graham was on the Patriots staff, but more importantly, Brian Hoyer faced the Patriots.
The whole freaking game was a revenge game, right? I mean, it's like everything in that game was revenge. Ramondre, homecoming for Ramondre, right? He scored.
Yeah, no, it's funny because Tommy Ty, Tommy Tran, not Tommy Ty. Tommy Ty is a radio broadcaster in South Florida. Tommy Tran asked me who was my other choice for start of the week, and I told him I didn't have the chutzpah to play to do Raheem Mostert, to do Ramondre Stevenson. I'm all over the place. To do Ramondre Stevenson, but that was my other consideration, and I should have gone with Ramondre Stevenson.
Do you guys think that this is the start of something good for Ramondre Stevenson? It was he did miss some time in this game. 10 carries, 46 yards, and a touchdown. He had his longest run of the year, I believe, it was like 15 yards. And he also had 5 catches at the Raiders. Is this the start of a good stretch for him? Buffalo, Miami, Washington coming up.
I think we'll see how this Buffalo run defense looks after tonight's game. First game without Milano completely. It's not a bad matchup, but this Patriots offense is still a mess. They're an absolute disaster. And, for anybody that took the Patriots to cover the spread, the safety at the end was a disaster. If the Raiders got a first down without punting, the Patriots cover the 3. I don't know if it's the start of a good stretch run for him, but it's certainly something that's encouraging because, again, you look at the first 2 games, he was productive. Then it's the Jets, the Cowboys, and the Saints in 3 games in a row, and those are not easy matchups. And so now he gets the Raiders, and he takes advantage of the matchup. I think if the offensive line gets healthier, then you'll be comfortable with Ramondre Stevenson. And he probably would have had I shouldn't say probably. He could have had the other touchdown that went to Zeke Elliott because he started that drive, and he had a big run to get them started, and then Zeke, got them down there, and he was the one on the field.
We've talked about several would you sell them running backs, and I think he is the one I would be most eager to sell. I'd rather have Mostert. I'd rather have Henry. Who was the other one?
Kamara. I don't think anybody would disagree with you.
Yeah. You can...
Okay. Would you sell him for? Would you give up Ramondre Stevenson for Calvin Ridley?
Yes,
for sure. Yeah. If assuming the positions work out, yeah.
I think if you're trying to look ahead, spending this depending on what your team looks like, you could try and sell Ramondre Stevenson for Devon Achane, like that type of move.
Okay, last question on this game. Sorry. Anyone interested in picking up Kendrick Bourne?
Desperate situation at best.
I would assume by the time all is said and done, he'll be one of the top 3 wide receivers on the waiver wire this week, just because of who's playing and who's available.
Well, this also was no Juju, no Demario Douglas. First game back for Tyquan Thornton. Hunter Henry was banged up in this game. So we saw this from Kendrick Bourne in week 1, and then he disappeared for 3 weeks.
Yeah, 4 weeks. Yeah. Okay, so 3 more games, Heath. 5 more minutes. Rams 26, Arizona 9.
I'll make fun of myself now. Kyron Williams is an even bigger sell high. He had, what was that? 2 rush attempts in the first half, and then 158 yards in the second.
Didn't have I don't think he had a target in this game though. So I think I agree on the sell high, but very high.
He's a stud.
You think he's a stud?
His workload and production, not his talent, but his workload is awesome. His production is amazing. And look, this Rams offense has been successful really for the majority of the season, especially given the expectations. So can you trade him for something great? Sure. You should absolutely be trying to sell him. But if you're, it's like the same thing for me with Mostert. Like, what are you giving up? What are you getting in return?
Who'd you rather have, Kyron or Mostert?
Mostert.
Yeah.
It's 2 games in a row since Kupp has been back where they're just not throwing to him. So that's fine. Just be aware of that factor. You don't have to be involved in the passing game to be a must-start running back, but it certainly helps. Puka Nacua, your thoughts on Nacua, guys? Last week he went for 71 yards and a touchdown on 11 targets. This week he had 4 for 26 on 7 targets. He should have had 5 for maybe 35 and 1 touchdown. He dropped a touchdown. It wasn't a deep one. But Jamie, do you still consider Nacua a must start?
Yeah, especially again with the teams on a bye. Pittsburgh secondary has been awful. That's what they get next week. So I'm going to go right back to him. I may not have him ranked in the top 12, but he'll certainly be ranked in the top 20. And so his worst game so far this season, 1 of 2 good games with Cooper Kupp, obviously 1 of 2 bad games with Cooper Kupp. But I still think this is enough of an offense where if he's going to get 7+ targets, 7 was the number today, you should feel pretty comfortable about Nacua moving forward.
Detroit 20.
And Heath, by the way, we were discussing this. I don't know if you realize what you called him on the show this morning. Cooper Nacua.
Cooper Nacua. I was trying to say Puka Nacua real fast, but
you said Cooper Nacua.
Cooper Nacua.
Yeah.
That's a good Cooper Nacua. I like that. Detroit 20, Tampa Bay 6.
You should just completely ignore Craig Reynolds on the waiver wire this week. It's a trap.
Did you guys discuss the Cardinals running backs earlier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was definitely the sad trombone.
Damian Williams.
I am probably ignoring Craig Reynolds. But
why?
If those guys are out, then well, I just don't expect much from him. But if both guys are out,
we're not going to know when waivers process if Montgomery is healthy, if Gibbs is healthy. And I think even if both those guys are out, Craig Reynolds at Baltimore is probably not going to be good anyway. Is my feeling.
He's probably not going to be good anyway. But again, as you've alluded to, we have 6 teams on a bye, and now you might not have Montgomery, you might not have Christian McCaffrey, you might not have Jahmyr Gibbs. We'll find out with some of these other guys that have been banged up that are missing. Aaron Jones coming back from his bye, is he going to be healthy? So while the matchup is extremely difficult, and I'll go back to the one that you referenced, I would start Craig Reynolds against Baltimore over Rachaad White.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. How about Chris Godwin or Mike Evans rest of season?
Still Mike Evans.
How about the Jets upsetting?
You should be happy. He got called for an offensive pass interference in the end zone today.
Yeah, there you go. Jets 20, Eagles 14.
Both Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall can be awesome rest of season with Zach Wilson.
I don't think Garrett Wilson's going to be awesome. I know Breece Hall is going to be awesome. I have zero doubt about this. I don't know if anybody saw his 2-yard run on 3rd down and 1 where he spun away. Was that amazing? That guy's freaking incredible. Wilson, no, I don't think he's going to be awesome.
Define awesome for Garrett Wilson,
though. Top 15.
He will not be top 15. But I think, you've seen now 2 of the last 3 games, coming off that stretch of tough matchups for them, where the targets have been up for Garrett Wilson. And while the production hasn't been awesome,
Right.
it's been serviceable enough that I would start him without hesitation.
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's not pretty close to top 15 right now.
Well, he had the touchdowns the first 2 weeks. Then he had the bad game in week 3. Then the Chiefs game in week 4 was good. The game against Broncos was bad. And this game was good.
He's
so
gone
probably in that range.
Yeah, 14, 16, 9, 15, 8, 17.
He's 20-ish, I would guess. Probably, yeah. But let me talk to you about Davante Smith before we go here, guys. He had a bad drop in this game. Probably left
horrible.
At least.
There was nobody within 20 yards of him.
I think he had 2 drops actually, but yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, so he had 11 targets. That was great, but Jalen Hurts threw 45 times. All right, what do we do? How concerned are we about Davante Smith at this point?
Not to the point of benching him, but next week's game will be interesting because the Dolphin secondary has certainly been beaten a few times this year. And I think we'll see a shootout. So that would play into, both quarterbacks having to throw and hopefully all the receivers being involved and productive. If you tell me he's getting 11 targets every week, I'm not even going to worry about it.
Okay. But that's the thing. He's not going to get 11 targets every week, right? I mean, he's not going to. Jalen Hurts is going to throw 45 times.
But again, you're looking at how these next couple of games are going to play out for them. Certainly next week. I don't know why that would be any different.
I'll take Garrett Wilson over Davante Smith rest of the season, right?
Not me.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know, man. I don't know. I got to give Zach Wilson credit. Like, he is doing a little bit better. But
have you seen their schedule coming out of the bye?
No.
They're going to come out of the bye and play the Giants, the Chargers, the Raiders. Who knows who the Bills will have? They're going to chase the score against the Dolphins.
It's good.
Yeah, it's going to be a great month.
You should go to that game, Adam. Jets-Giants.
Jets-Giants. Well, it's on a Monday. It's on a Sunday, so I can't. But all right. Thanks, dudes. Appreciate your time tonight. And thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. And we will talk to you tomorrow with Beyond the Box Score. That's at 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. We'll break it down. Get you. It's a fun show. You should really take a listen. And Schneier's on, so we'll make fun of his hair. See ya.